Yo, and what is up, gang? Thank you for checking out Sledgehammer TV today. SmackDown continues to be the same show every week, not just in the way that they book the show, but because outside of the main event scene with the Universal title and maybe a little bit of interest in what's going on between Sami and Kevin Owens, there is nothing at all that is being done to get you excited for WrestleMania just 7 days before WrestleMania, actually less, because WrestleMania now starts next Friday on SmackDown, and the fact that they made me mad at next week's episode before this episode was even concluded is just a whole nother level of incompetence. And we are going to talk about all of it and so much more right here and right now. My name is Nick Nightmare. You are watching the Sledgehammer Wrestling Show's SmackDown Review and Reaction Show. Let's do it.
Sledgehammer Wrestling Show.
So it is very, very annoying to me that they are putting the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal on an episode of SmackDown. This is the episode next week we're talking about right now. It's amazing that we're talking about something that hasn't even happened yet because of their just stupidity in how they decide to do things. I don't understand it. The whole point of the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal is to commemorate the eighth wonder of the world and have him remembered every year for at least once a day on WrestleMania. Now, this thing was started, like 7 years ago? We've had a bunch of winners that nobody that has ever won the Andre the Giant Battle Royal has been made the better for it. And they have done this Battle Royal more and more dirty as every year goes on. It has been relegated to the pre-show, and now it's not even on WrestleMania. It's on an episode of SmackDown. So if you're not going to do an Andre the Giant Battle Royal at WrestleMania, which is what it was created for WrestleMania 30, then don't do it at all. And then to make it even worse, when you look at the list of the competitors in this thing, which they also released, you got Shinsuke Nakamura. His WrestleMania moment this year is going to be on SmackDown in a Battle Royal. You got Jey Uso, main event Jey Uso, who hasn't won any of his matches in maybe about 3 months, but consistently has been putting on some of the best bangers that SmackDown has featured, no matter who he's in the ring against. All his hard work on SmackDown these last few weeks has been rewarded by putting him in a Battle Royal that has now become even more meaningless than it ever has. And then outside of the Battle Royal, you got this Tag Team Championship Fatal 4-Way thing, which screams WrestleMania. That's supposed to be a WrestleMania match. You're supposed to have title matches at WrestleMania. Why are we doing this on the go-home show for WrestleMania? Instead of putting all their eggs in one basket, seeing that Easter is this weekend, let's use that metaphor. Instead of putting all their eggs in one basket and giving us a beautiful basket full of eggs, they're taking all of their eggs, they're letting them expire, they're letting them become old and moldy and stinky and they smell like farts, and then they're just throwing them in our face and watching them smash and splatter because they didn't even have the sense to hard boil these eggs at all. It's just a big, disgusting mess. There is nothing interesting going on, and they continue to ruin it week after week after week. So now let's bring it around to this show that we had to stomach this week, which essentially, to me, is the actual go-home show for WrestleMania, being that WrestleMania comes early next Friday for WrestleMania Smackdown, which is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Just because it's the kickoff of the weekend doesn't mean it needs to be involved as a WrestleMania show. Do more work to make it a good go-home show. Don't just add matches for WrestleMania that you don't want to put on the card for either Saturday or Sunday. You got 2 nights of action to plan. You couldn't put the Andre the Giant Battle Royal on one of those 2 nights, even if it was only on the pre-show. Come on. It's just so ridiculous. And that's going to be happening next weekend. It's driving me insane. It's driving me absolutely insane. But let's focus in a little bit better and let's talk about what happened tonight on SmackDown. Holy shit, man. outside of everything going on with Edge and Daniel and Roman Reigns, I could care less about what's going on. Edge kicked off the show, and he had a very good promo. Now, I've been very critical of Edge, saying, what the hell is he mad about? I don't understand. He won the Royal Rumble. He's in the main event at WrestleMania. He's getting a Universal Championship, but it just doesn't make sense on why he would be so mad. It's not like he was taken out of the match. There's just somebody else being added to it. And you would think that he'd have enough respect for Daniel Bryan to want to compete against Daniel Bryan, and he would accept the challenge of the two top guys of SmackDown and being involved with them on his historic comeback and his return to the main event of WrestleMania. You would think he would embrace all of these things, but instead he's taken the other way around. And I appreciate what he was saying, and it makes it, it does make it make more sense, because he's not mad that he lost his spot, or that he's not special, or that he didn't win the Royal Rumble. He's mad that he's waited all these years, that it took him 10 years to get back to this point, and that now that he was so close to this one-on-one chance for the Universal Championship, he feels like Daniel Bryan manipulated his way. He says he got outplayed by Daniel Bryan, and even though he was looking forward to everything that he did with Daniel Bryan at Fastlane, it wasn't enough for Daniel Bryan, and he had to step into Edge's spotlight. And now that the Rated R superstar has come back to the surface of Edge, he's not playing this I'm happy to be back, Edge / Adam Copeland happy dude. He's straight up Rated R superstar, and he could care less what happens to Daniel Bryan tonight. If he happens to get hurt in his sudden street fight with Jey Uso that was announced for this show, he wouldn't bat an eyelash at it. He doesn't care at all what happens, and he just is laser focused right now on his match at WrestleMania. He doesn't care who wins, who loses, but if Daniel gets beaten out of his brain tonight, he'll be totally all right with it. And he's really playing up the heel character, and I like where Edge is taking this. You gotta get excited when you're thinking about this triple threat, and when you see everything that they have done building it up. It's been the best told story probably in all of the WWE right now. Everything else is a hot bag of garbage and deserves a big fat flying poop hammer all over everybody's faces. It was that bad of a show. Why? Why are you giving poop hammers so early? Well, because we had the Alpha Academy show up, and they're doing all these things now for the Academy. The new catchphrase for this random team that looks kind of silly, and now I guess they're heels, and Otis is the bad guy now, and I just really don't have any interest in the Alpha Academy, because I don't see why they broke Otis away from Tucker to put him in another tag team, and why they couldn't have just done this with Heavy Machinery over the course of the year. I don't get it. And I feel like Chad Gable is being wasted in this role. And when I watch Chad Gable speak, I know that the WWE really dropped the ball a couple of years back when they had the whole Kurt Angle's son thing. And we said it back then when they announced that, oh my God, I forgot the other kid's name now. What the hell was his name? The kid that was the partner with Chad Gable. Not Shelton Benjamin, the other kid. Oh, it doesn't matter. Jason Jordan. Holy shit, he's been gone for so long that I don't even remember. But that was a mistake. Chad Gable definitely should have been the Kurt Angle's son selection. All right, when you watch and listen, he definitely has all those mannerisms. He's just too small, which is why he was Shorty G for 2 years, and that's why he doesn't get the proper push that he deserves. But this whole tag team nonsense is ridiculous. They announced the Fatal 4-Way for next week's WrestleMania Smackdown, and then they proceeded to have a meaningless 8-man tag team match. I've seen so many 6, 8, 10-man tag team matches on regular TV that there's no way you could be excited for something like this. We had the Dirty Dogs teamed up with Chad Gable and Otis. They defeated the Street Profits and Giant Baby Son and Tiny Dad themselves, Rey and Dominic Mysterio. They, of all 3 teams involved here, actually are the only ones that have an actual story to tell. They want to become the first ever father-son tag team champions. I would be okay with that as long as that road ends with them fighting each other one way or another. I'm going to stick to that every single week. I want to see Ray versus Dominic. And we all know how the WWE loves to break up tag teams and have them implode at the last minute. So I would be accepting of that. Anybody else? Does it really matter? Do we want to see the Street Profits as champions again? That went absolutely nowhere. Chad and Otis might be interesting, but Ziggler and Rude have done nothing with this. They just don't even make sense as a tag team. I never got into the Dirty Dogs. I don't know if it's because of Dolph Ziggler, because I'm a big fan of Bobby Roode, Robert Roode, whatever you want to call him. But this is just a waste. This was just a waste. And no matter how fun you might have thought it was or how decent the action was, they gave you only 1 week in between the Fatal 4-Way, a match where all 4 teams are in the ring. So it's kind of almost the same kind of match. An 8-man tag and a Fatal 4-Way, not really that much different, except there's more tags involved and more people in the ring at the same time. I don't care. I don't care about any of this, and I'm sure none of you guys cared about it as well. Another thing that I thought was kind of weird was Paul Heyman showing up in the back. He wants to talk to Adam Pearce and Sonya Deville, who is back being in the background of SmackDown now. And he wants to add a stipulation to tonight's street fight with Jey Uso and Daniel Bryan that Jey Uso will not be held responsible for what he does to Daniel Bryan in the main event. He wants a hold harmless agreement. Adam Pearce was about to say something, but Sonya Deville cut him off because Adam Pearce got no balls, and I guess Sonya Deville's got all the stroke, and she agreed with Paul Heyman, so Jey Uso will not be held accountable for what happens to Daniel Bryan in this street fight. But I can't help but think to myself, who's ever been held accountable for anything that has happened in a street fight? We've seen some pretty vicious street fights in the WWE, especially back in the Attitude Era. Was there ever anybody that wanted to sue the company? Was there ever anybody that tried to go the legal route and get ramification for losing a match, for losing a street fight? Because this guy hit me with a chair. This guy hit me with a chain 50 times in the head. I demand retribution. It makes no sense. A hold harmless agreement in this situation, it makes no sense. Maybe if it was an unsanctioned match or something like that, you can get around that. But what's the point? Because in every street fight or every hardcore / extreme rules scenario you want to put into a match, nobody's ever been held accountable for what has happened during a wrestling match. Isn't that the whole point? Is to go out there and beat the shit out of each other? It would be like a boxer going out and getting his ass beat and then suing the guy that beat his ass. That just makes no sense, and it's just maybe trying to add a little bit of intrigue to it because it's going to make you believe that Jey Uso's going to be more intense than ever and he's going to want to destroy Daniel Bryan at any cost and he doesn't want to be held responsible. It's a reach, right? It's a reach, and it just doesn't really make that much sense in the world of professional wrestling. Hold harmless agreement? Come on, somebody was reading their law books that day and decided to throw this in on the script, and it was just ridiculous. Not as ridiculous as Seth Rollins' new jacket this week. His whole little outfit, he looked like somebody spilled grape juice all over him. Or maybe he got pelted with a bunch of purple paintballs. Or maybe he was walking into the arena in a nice, beautiful white suit and got caught up in the cotton candy machine and had it ruin his nice, crispy white suit. I don't understand, but he continues to have some of the worst style I have ever seen, and he needs to stop raiding Becky Lynch's closet for outfits and start shopping on his own for some man clothes, because he looks fucking ridiculous. And you would think he would be the champion of the terrible suit, but tonight he was challenged. Tonight he was challenged for the worst suit jacket by multiple people. We had Sami Zayn in a really loud and gaudy jacket, but that kind of fits for Sami Zayn because he's a loud and gaudy type of character. But in Seth Rollins' segment with Cesaro, it was being moderated by Corey Graves, who was wearing something that looked like you pulled it right out of a Lisa Frank catalog. It was just weird. Or something from the Dia de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead celebration. It was just weird. It was a lot of colors. It was black. And he was giving Seth Rollins a run for his money in the bad jacket department. But both of these individuals need to only do one thing, and that is...
burn it. You should burn the jacket.
Burn those jackets, man. It was absolutely terrible. Cesaro's out there looking like $1,000,000 dressed like James Bond, and he's in there with these two guys in a couple of clown suits. Oh, it's fashion. You don't know nothing about fashion, Mr. Nightmare. I don't need to know about fashion to know that this was an assault on my eyeballs. And Seth Rollins is on a winning streak of wearing the worst suits I have ever seen. It's just ridiculous. Maybe he's trying to stand out because everybody hates his little Seth Rollins gimmick, so he has to stand out from the crowd in another way. I don't know, but he looks ridiculous. Somebody tell him. He's not going to hear it from me. He hates my guts. But somebody tell him, tone it down a little bit. Tone it down a little bit. Dress like a normal person. What are you doing with these ridiculous suits? I absolutely hate it. The segment itself, I thought was okay. It was a good back and forth between Cesaro and Seth Rollins. Cesaro not the best on the mic, but I'm really looking kind of forward to this match. It's going to be an excellent wrestling match at WrestleMania. I just wish there was more to it than the fact that Seth Rollins is just pissed that Cesaro swung him. You would think it would have a little bit more meaning to it, a little bit more meat on the bones in this feud, because Cesaro's been held down for so long, and Seth Rollins has been given opportunity after opportunity and main event spots and promo time going over about 20 minutes, while Cesaro, who's one of the hardest working, most underrated performers on the roster, has been given nothing but acid indigestion and agita. Right? It's terrible when you look at it that way, but there's a whole lot of story there that they're just not sinking their teeth into. They just, Seth Rollins is, man, you swung me, man. Seth Rollins doesn't like to be swung. And Cesaro's like, well, I'm going to swing you again at WrestleMania. And essentially that's what this whole entire feud is about. Being swung. 27, 28, whatever the number was, it doesn't even matter. That's not what this is about. It'll be great when the crowd is in Raymond James Stadium for WrestleMania next Sunday or Saturday, whatever day it's on, and Cesaro locks in that swing. The crowd's probably going to go nuts. That's great. If that's what you're building towards for WrestleMania, a swing spot, you got to be doing a better job than that, because this should be better than it is. Just like everything else with the WWE, but this especially, when you got the guys, the talent level of Seth Rollins and Cesaro, you would think they'd want to make it as interesting and as powerful as possible, but instead, it's like a couple of kids. You swung me! I didn't want to be swung! Get out of here with all of that. Absolutely ridiculous. So anyway, this face-off didn't really go anywhere. Seth Rollins got pissed off because Cesaro was taunting him, told him to take a swing. Again, heavily relying on the whole swing factor here. And they got into each other's faces, but then Seth Rollins backed off and left the ring. And that was it. And after that, things get progressively worse for a long amount of time, because the women's segments on this show were just cringe, came out of nowhere, and make no sense. And it is another illustration on why I hate when we get closer to a main pay-per-view and all of a sudden the brand split lines are blurred or non-existent at all. Because here we have a segment where Natalya is going one-on-one with Shayna Baszler. Obviously, they have their tag team partners in tow, Tamina and Shayna Baszler, and Nia Jax, rather, respectively. Unfortunately, Reginald is still hanging around with Nia Jax. Before this match, Nia Jax seen Carmella warming up in the back and told her that she didn't treat Reginald right, and then walked off. And Carmella was as confused as I was, because that just seemed completely unnecessary. They just want to have Reginald on screen as many times as possible. It was fucking awful. It was just stupid. Just as stupid as the match to follow, because when you're giving me a match with Natalya and Shayna Baszler, and it doesn't even go 40 seconds, my mind explodes. My mind explodes. Shayna Baszler is one of the best, most talented in-ring wrestlers you will ever see, but you're not going to know that because she's stuck in this women's tag team division nightmare vortex of hell, which makes little to no sense no matter how you slice it. No matter how you try to help it, it just gets worse and worse. Because here, after this 40-second matchup where Natalya beat Shayna Baszler with a roll-up, the most overused and just totally not over move in pro wrestling. I mean, if you keep getting pinned by roll-ups and schoolboys and flash pinfalls, you're not very good. You were at almost 100% going into this match, and within 30 seconds you got rolled up. That's not how wrestling works, and this was only done so that we can have the obligatory let's get everybody in the match involved in this angle because we don't know what the hell we're doing. Instead of really focusing in, picking a team, building them up, while also building up the champions along the way, we're just going to take everybody and throw them in the pool and hope they don't all drown. Which is just a terrible way to go about booking. Don't they realize they're doing the same thing for the men here that they're doing for the women? Of course not, because if you rub two dimes together like this right in front of these guys that write this show, they wouldn't be able to come up with 20 cents as the answer to what you're holding. It's that bad. It's that bad. We had Lana and Naomi show up from Monday Night Raw because, they want a shot of the championships. We had Natty and Tamina in there. We had the Riot Squad come from out of nowhere. They haven't been on TV in months. All of a sudden, they're going to get a title opportunity. Or they're being put in this match to earn a title opportunity. Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke. What do all of these teams, except really for the Riot Squad, have in common? Including the women's champions, Baszler and Jax. They are all random, thrown together with nothing behind them. Why are Lana and Naomi even a team? Dana Brooke and Mandy Rose, didn't they a couple of weeks back say some shit that they're going to go on their own path and they had an interaction with Charlotte Flair? And they both made it known that they wanted to not be in a tag team and that they were going towards maybe an opportunity for Asuka? But now that's all been forgotten and they just are back on their regularly scheduled weekly we want the women's tag team champions stuff. And then the only real tag team in all of the women's division, you got the Riot Squad, who have been missing in action, come out of nowhere. They're automatically put into this thing. Natty and Tamina have only been together for a couple of weeks. They're getting win after win after win. If there were anybody in this, it's sad to say, anybody in here that actually they've been building somewhat properly and have some momentum, it's Natty and Tamina. But it's awful. It's awful. And all of this just ended up going from one spot to the other. One team looked good, and then the other team got beat, and another team, it was just back and forth until finally Natty and Tamina were left standing tall after they beat down Naomi and Lana to end this nightmarish segment. But then it continued even more because they went to the back, and you see Billie Kay trying to give her resume to Carmella, who's in her second of 3 segments on this night for absolutely no reason. Carmella first told her to leave, but then she changed her mind and took Billie Kay's resume and started to read it. And now I'm thinking that somehow, by hook or crook, Carmella and Billie Kay are going to be another tag team that is going to be put into this tag team match of all the tag teams on night 1 of WrestleMania, where the winner will get a shot at Baszler and Jax on night 2. And I couldn't be any less interested than I am in the women's division right now. It's just completely forced, not well thought out, no plan to it, and I don't know how anybody could care. Do you have any reason to care about any of these teams? Do they have names? Do they have anything interesting about them? No. They're just a bunch of randomly paired together females so that they can all get a shot and a piece of that WrestleMania payday card. Unnecessary. Just as unnecessary as involving a guy like Logan Paul in a feud with Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. I love what Zayn and Owens are doing right now. If you take out the Logan Paul factor, I just don't need celebrity involvement here. This is supposed to be intensity. This is like a callback to the old days of NXT. This is a lifelong, never-ending feud between Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. And although I liked what they did with the documentary, I thought the trailer for Sami's documentary was very amusing. I thought it was actually well done. Like, they really put some thought into it and gave it some production value and made it look good. And I thought it was hysterical. But for all of this to just be a ploy to involve Logan Paul somehow just takes everything away. Now, I will say this. He wasn't annoying on the show. He actually, said some shit to Sami Zayn. But Sami just wanted Logan Paul to acknowledge what he wants Kevin Owens to acknowledge, which is the fact that he's been being screwed, the company's working against him, and he wants to bring all of this to light. But even though Logan Paul is there for Sami Zayn as his guest for this red carpet premiere, Logan Paul says, that he spoke to Kevin Owens, and Kevin Owens told him what's really going on, and that Sami Zayn is delusional, and this and that, and Sami Zayn got all upset. And I loved the emotion from Sami Zayn. His character work has been fantastic, all his dancing and stuff to the music before. He's really trying to get himself over as that aggravating, annoying heel, but right now he's in this delusional frame of mind where he thinks the world is against him, and Logan Paul said Kevin Owens told him that Sami Zayn is delusional, and now Zayn is like pissed off. He's like, you're my guest. Why are you going against me? And then all of a sudden, Sami Zayn gets jumped by Kevin Owens. He gets his nemesis and puts him into a stunner, and that was all you really needed. You needed Sami Zayn to come out, talk his shit. KO comes out, hits him with a stunner. Kevin Owens saying to Sami Zayn that he's going to keep doing this until he snaps out of it. So this is almost like Kevin Owens with some tough love. He wants Sami Zayn to come back to reality. And he's going to stun him into reality if he doesn't stop with all of this madness. And then Owens then put his hands on Logan Paul as he walked by him. He gave him I think a tap or a shove or something. And Sami Zayn invited Logan Paul in this segment to the match at WrestleMania, which means he's going to have some sort of involvement. And if it doesn't end with him eating a stunner by Kevin Owens at some point, then it's an epic fail. Epic fail. Why else have the celebrity involved if it's not going to pay off and get over one of the people, much like they're doing on Raw with Bad Bunny and Damian Priest. Bad Bunny's taking all the heat over there, and everybody else is just being pushed aside. So I hope that's not the same type of thing that is going on here on SmackDown. And another thing that they have done that continues to be nothing more than a complete failure that I just can't comprehend, because this was as easy as an open net goal. Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks' feud continues, if you want to say that, but it is not anything interesting at all. You would think that this was a chip shot. There was so much riding on this, and they failed it. They failed both of these girls tremendously. Sasha Banks in that diamond-studded catsuit looked like $1,000,000. Holy shit, man. She was breathtaking tonight. And Bianca Belair had a match. Bianca Belair was put in a match, and she defeated Carmella, which is fine, but that's not what this was about at all. This was about, after her beating Carmella, Sasha Banks comes out of nowhere, jumps into the ring, and then they just kind of touched each other and then stood there, jaw-jacking a little bit and pointing at the WrestleMania sign, because I guess they're saving everything for WrestleMania. This has been one of the worst builds of the entire card. And it's featuring two of the top talents in the women's division. People were arguing that this should be a main event of one of the two nights of WrestleMania, myself included. But when you take into account how they failed this feud, they pigeonholed them in with the women's tag team champions. Can they coexist? The most popular storyline in all of wrestling. And it's just been terrible. And I feel bad for Bianca Belair. I feel bad for Sasha Banks, because these girls deserved better than this. This is just absolutely ridiculous. Bianca Belair defeats Carmella, hitting the KOD for the win, and it followed up with absolutely nothing. Nothing but the two competitors staring at each other, having a staring contest, and talking shit back and forth in the ring. Speaking of talking shit, Drew McIntyre is involved, but Constable King Dickhead, Baron Corbin, shows up, dressed up in his little hotel manager's uniform once again. He's taking on Drew McIntyre this Monday, and he felt he needed to tell us this on SmackDown. This guy went to Raw for no reason. He was taking up Bobby Lashley on his offer. If anybody can take out Drew McIntyre, he can take his place at WrestleMania. So Baron Corbin's going to show up on Monday, get his ass handed to him, and I don't understand what the point of any of this was. There is nothing happening here that they could not have accomplished with any of the other members of the Hurt Business, which is probably the most controversial thing in wrestling right now. They broke up one of the best things going in the company way too soon, and they removed Cedric and Shelton to insert King Dickhead. And why is he even still a king? Isn't this going to wrap up at some point? Being the king has done nothing for him. All he's done by winning the King of the Ring is make nobody ever want to see the King of the Ring again. And I wanted it back so bad. And then they shoved it in my face by giving it to Corbin. And now it's just, I felt like he's been Constable King Dickhead forever, and it's never ever going to go away. And everything they're doing with him right now means nothing, because he's just going to go lose to Drew. So why? Why bother in the first place? In this case, maybe they're trying too hard to do something interesting? Or what, because Baron Corbin used to be in that stable with Bobby Lashley and Drew McIntyre, we're supposed to care? We didn't care about that when it was a thing, so why are we going to care that these three men are involved? And if Corbin ends up finding a way into that main event at WrestleMania, holy shit. There's no way we're going to have two triple threats. There's no way. Well, maybe there is, because they don't know what the hell they're doing over there in the WWE anymore. Just like giving Apollo Crews this Nigerian accent. I love the new character. I love the new direction. I hate the forced accent. It's terrible. He sounds like a 90s cartoon villain. And personally, I don't know what a Nigerian accent is supposed to sound like, but it probably doesn't sound much like that. Apollo Crews came out, he's talking about his match with Big E at WrestleMania. He challenged Big E to a Nigerian drum fight, which is basically a street fight. He wants to beat Big E so bad that it's going to sound like the beating of a drum. So that's why you're calling it a Nigerian drum fight? I feel in my bones, and I'm almost certain that there's going to be a bunch of guys outside the ring with big barrel drums giving you that like war chant, boom, 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 throughout the entire match, because that's what a drum fight would have, right? It's a drum fight. We need to have guys with drums banging the drums around while these two guys are killing each other in the ring. I wouldn't be surprised if that's where they're going with this, because other than that, it's just a street fight or no holds barred. However you want to classify it. These two guys are going one-on-one at WrestleMania. Probably going to be a great match. I don't know what really a Nigerian drum fight is, but if it's anything like the Punjabi prison, it's going to be a failure. I don't think there's going to be a setup. I don't think it's going to be anything special. Maybe we'll get the drummer boys outside. Boom, 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 boom. Nigerian drum fight. Boom, 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 boom. Maybe. Maybe not. We'll have to wait and see next week as WrestleMania fast approaches. The street fight, as always, main event, Daniel Bryan versus main event, Jey Uso. I thought this was very well done, and they brought Edge out on commentary. Roman Reigns also came out and was watching from the stage as he came out with his own chair, as he's been doing lately, and overlooking everything happening in his kingdom as the Universal Champion. And the match between the match between Jey and Daniel Bryan was fantastic, and Edge on commentary was very good indeed as well. He focused in not only on his dislike for Daniel Bryan, but also how he doesn't care too much for Jey Uso. He respects both men. They've been putting on great matches, but he's just pissed at everybody Maybe he's pissed at Jey Uso because he couldn't keep Daniel Bryan down for the count and keep Daniel Bryan out of his match. But Edge, the rated R superstar Edge, hates everybody, and I think it's great. I think it's great. I think it's much better than what he was doing with Randy Orton. I like his intensity on the mic. I liked everything he was saying on commentary. He wasn't distracting. He also, at points, was putting over both of the men during the match, talking about how good they were here and good they were there. Says that he has respect for Daniel Bryan, or he used to like Daniel Bryan, used to have respect for him until he infringed on his business and is getting in the way of his big comeback moment. And then with Roman just watching, of course, saying nothing, he was taking great pleasure watching Jey Uso beat down Daniel Bryan in certain segments. But this thing took a whole nother level when Daniel Bryan took a steel chain, wrapped it around his arm, and just went apeshit on Jey Uso, assaulting him with the elbow over and over and over again. It was a really, really good match. As always, Daniel and Jey have been put together multiple times on this road to WrestleMania as opponents. Every time it has been a great match. But how many more times do we have to see Daniel Bryan versus Jey Uso? This thing elevated to a whole nother level after Daniel Bryan got the win here. He applied the yes lock to Jey Uso, getting him to tap out for the win. As soon as he tapped out and the bell rang, Daniel Bryan rolled out of the ring and assaulted Edge. He delivered a running knee to Edge in his chair at commentary, then took advantage of the situation and sent Edge into the steel post, knocking him out for a little while, just long enough for him to hit the stage and try to assault Roman Reigns, which he also successfully did, and got him locked into the yes lock, tried to make him tap out until everybody from the back came, broke it up, and then we ended SmackDown with Daniel Bryan doing the yes chant, gaining all the momentum for this match on Sunday, and I really enjoyed the end of this match. I thought it was fucking great. I really, really did. And like you said at the beginning, the best thing that they are doing on this road to WrestleMania is everything involving these three men. Does Daniel Bryan come out on top at WrestleMania? You might think maybe. Is Edge going to do it? Maybe. But in the back of your mind, you're thinking also, they ain't going to take the belt from Roman. Vince finally has what he wants. Roman's seated atop the WWE Universe as the man, the head of the table. They're going to take it away from him? Maybe. Maybe. And the fact that they have you thinking maybe, and the fact that you don't really know for sure, you feel like Roman's going to win, but there's that little bit in you that says maybe they would do it, then that means they're doing a good enough job. Because the most intriguing match for all of next weekend's WrestleMania festivities is this triple threat match for the Universal title. Now, one little sidebar before we close out is, man, did Paul Heyman piss me off at the end of this show. Because Roman Reigns is getting annihilated by Daniel Bryan, and as we said, at one point he locked in the yes lock. And Paul Heyman just stood there on the stage, watching, holding the Universal Championship, and doing nothing. Now, I know he's not classified as a manager, he's the advocate, just like he was for Brock Lesnar, but what's really the difference? Does being an advocate means you have no balls and you won't help your charge to succeed or, help him out in times of need? Do you think Bobby the Brain Heenan would have ever allowed somebody to do that without at least getting involved and trying to break it up at some point? That's the role of a manager, is to protect your guy. But you're standing there watching him get his ass beat. You very easily could have came up from behind while Daniel had him in the yes lock on the ramp and hit Daniel with the belt or something, the chair, a shoe, kick him, slap him, anything to stop what he's doing to your champ. Sure, that's going to make Daniel Bryan turn his attention to Paul Heyman now, but that's when you become chicken shit heel manager and backpedal away and run for your life. But at least you did your job as a manager and did what you're supposed to do to protect your guy. As a person who has aspired to be a pro wrestling manager his whole entire life, aggravates me that Paul Heyman just stood there to watch this whole thing go down and did nothing about it. Nothing. Think of all the greats that have ever managed anybody. Bobby Heenan, Jimmy Hart. Think if the Mouth of the South was Roman Reigns' manager right now, he wouldn't have stopped Daniel Bryan by hitting him with the megaphone when he got the upper hand. Or at least at some point try to interject somehow. Even if he was doing nothing but yelling at Daniel Bryan to stop being annoying in the microphone. Paul Heyman didn't even get close, and he just stood back and was like, well, Roman's getting his ass kicked. I'm going to stay back here and be fat Paul Heyman. It fucking aggravates me to no end. But that's it. That's all we got for this week's episode of SmackDown. It was awful. It was absolutely awful outside of the Universal Championship, of course. And next week, we've already brought the hammer down on next week. Maybe like a preview for next week. We started off this show because, to me, when they announced the Andre Battle Royal, I thought it was going to be great. I thought it was going to be special. I thought it was going to be a launch point for certain talents and really bring them to greater heights. But instead, every year it just gets worse and worse. And if you're not going to do it at WrestleMania, which is the only reason why you should be having an Andre the Giant Battle Royal, then don't do it at all. Don't do it at all. Don't throw it on a SmackDown. Throw the WrestleMania logo on top of the SmackDown logo, and WrestleMania's come early. WrestleMania hasn't come early. It's not going to come early. That's SmackDown. It's supposed to be the go-home show, the final show for you to build anything at all, to put all the pieces in place so that WrestleMania is set. But instead, you're going to get things started early. Why? Why? Last year we didn't get an Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal because of COVID and the whole pandemic, and we couldn't have that many people in the ring all at the same time. It was just at its apex, and it really just began. Nobody really understood all that much at that time. But this year we get to have it, and we're not having it at WrestleMania. And the list of guys is just catering all-stars plus Shinsuke and Jey Uso. Retribution's in this thing. We haven't seen them in weeks. But you're going to have Mustafa Ali in the same ring with T-Bar and Slapnuts. But nothing's made of it. Nothing's made of it. And it's just ridiculous. Having the championship fatal 4-way next week when you're 24 hours away from the actual WrestleMania. Why? Why? It's just awful. It's awful. But the women's tag team division gets to have a segment on each night. And they're nowhere near as developed as the very little developed men's tag team division. As we say all the time, the best thing they can do for the men is merge the divisions. You don't care about the brand split anyway, so why are we even doing it anymore? It's really become hard to watch. It's really nonsensical. And I'm already pissed about next week. So it'll be interesting to see what else they try to throw on this WrestleMania Smackdown. Instead of having just a regular, good old-fashioned go-home show. It's just stupid. It really is. Thank you guys so very much for joining me once again as we bring the hammer down on SmackDown like nobody else on this platform. And my love for you guys is never ending, and I appreciate all your continued love and support on this channel. You can do so without spending a dime by hitting that like button if you enjoyed what we had to do, what we said here today. And if you're not enjoying the road to WrestleMania so far, just like I am not, hit that thumbs up for me right now. Share this video with all of your like-minded wrestling friends if you think they would have a good time doing what we do here at Sledgehammer TV. Share this video all over. And of course, if you yourself are not already a subscriber, which I don't know why you wouldn't be if you're sitting here at almost 45 minutes with me, you're definitely a subscriber. Hit that subscribe button if you're not. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss anything anytime we throw anything up, as the road to WrestleMania gets shorter and shorter, and all next weekend we are going to be here bringing the hammer down on the biggest show of the year, and you don't want to miss it. The best way to not miss it, subscribe, stay notified, tell the world where to come to get their frustrations out and bring their hammers down when WrestleMania is over next week. When all these shows are over, because the WWE does nothing but aggravates us one show at a time. My name is Nick Nightmare. This is the Team Thor, the Sledgehammer, the official Sledgehammer, the Sledgehammer Wrestling Show. His tag team partner, the World Heavyweight Champion of all the microphones in all the world, Mr. Blue the Snowball. Most important member of this team, as always, each and every one of you. Thank you so much. If you missed anything else this week, it'll be linked in the annotations up above, and we will see you this week for the 2 go-home shows, and next weekend for the Wrestlemania 2-night extravaganza of trash that we are going to have to sit through. I hope you guys can do it. I'm going to do it for you. And if you can't do it, I'll be here for your reviews at the end. Have a happy Easter, everybody. If you celebrate, go get your eggs, go get your chocolates, have a great dinner, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend, because Good Friday wasn't that good, thanks to SmackDown, but the rest of the weekend has the capability of getting better, one chocolate cream Cadbury egg at a time. That, my friends, is going to do it. We are out of here. We will see you next time right here on your new favorite wrestling show, the Sledgehammer Wrestling Show, only on Sledgehammer TV, right here on YouTube.com.
Thanks, Vince. Oh.